we are talking about HBM in the new chemical strategy, and I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Jack de Bruijn, who is a director responsible for prioritization and integration at the European Food Safety Agency. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Birgit. Just a small correction, I'm in the Chemicals Agency, not the Food Agency. But we've been both following the HBM4EU for quite a long time, and usually have been following the same lines in terms of our intervention. So I guess we'll be saying to some extent maybe the same. First of all, let me thank you for the invitation to participate in this conference, and in particular this specific panel that looks indeed into the future of human biomonitoring. I have only a few minutes to introduce this subject from my perspective, so I would like to look back a little bit to what has happened, where we stand with the HBM4EU project, and then look more ahead to what we need in future. And let me maybe start saying, but I think it's been said a lot already today, that the HBM4EU is a very important project. It's a flagship in the EU. And I'm saying this because I think the capacity in terms of structure, competence, and knowledge to generate high quality biomonitoring data has been lacking in many countries so far. So it's really great to see that with this project, a big step has been made in the right direction. As we heard earlier today, the project has been delivering a lot of very good output in line with the original work plan. And again, tremendous work has been carried out to lay a foundation for generating biomonitoring data that we can apply in our regulatory risk assessments and decision-making processes. The biomonitoring data that have until now been generated or will still be generated in the very near future partly address to what I would call well-known problematic substances, for which a lot of regulatory action has already been taken. Cadmium, mercury, lead, phthalates, etc. Reference to those has been made before today. But also some work has been done already on a number of substances that are less well studied and for which decisions to initiate actions are still pending. Obviously, biomonitoring data for the first group are very interesting, but these will mainly be used to monitor the effectiveness of existing control measures and to see if we need to do more. Work on the second group of substances has clearly our strongest interest, as this will help us in ECHA to prioritize new problematic groups of chemicals and to provide advice to the Commission and Member States on where actions are needed. This also implies we do not necessarily need very extensive data sets that are representative for the whole of the EU, for all countries. A relatively limited set of data that already indicates widespread human exposure at EU level and gives a reasonable level of the internal, reasonable idea of the internal levels can already be enough to trigger further action. We actually expect that it will be rarely needed to set up long-term programs that cover all EU member states in order to demonstrate risks. They may, though, be beneficial to monitor the effect of regulatory actions that have been taken. Key, however, and that's important to stress here, is that the data generated through this project is as quickly made available to the authorities and that the data protection issues are solved. And that is an issue which the project itself is very well aware of and working hard on. So I trust this will all be fine in the end. Again, however, I would like to stress again that to underpin our actions, very often a high level of aggregation of data is sufficient. And we can work with aggregated data, but there should at least be a sufficient grip to see which subpopulations are mostly at risk. What does it all mean for our wishes towards the future, and how can this work contribute to the implementation of the soon-to-be issued EU chemical strategy for sustainability? Well, I think first and for all, we think that the biomonitoring knowledge and capacity in the EU member states that has now been obtained and generated through HBM4EU should be maintained so that we can use it also where needed in future. But given that it's costly, and I think there were quite a few references to that made already today, it should be used wisely and strategically, meaning it should serve clearly the key regulatory questions at EU and member state level. The focus of future work and research should be on identifying new and emerging substances of potential concern. HBM can provide important signals that the inherent precaution that is built into our regulatory system may not be sufficient for certain chemicals, or that, for instance, we are getting chemicals into the EU through import of articles. Therefore, we really hope that strong focus will be on exploratory work and screening activities. Regular biomonitoring of well-known substances might be necessary in certain cases, but should be extremely well argued as it's very costly. But let's avoid creating a risk assessment paradigm that dictates the need to have such data before any regulatory action can be taken. We hope that the embedding of HBM work into the wider scope of the European Partnership for Chemicals Risk Assessment, PARC, will provide more opportunities for steering and focusing the work, and will ensure that the data will be delivered that can directly impact our regulatory advice and decisions. We hope the foreseen governance structure of PARC will provide for this. By embedding this work in PARC, we are also securing the future of HBM, but only in the midterm. Hence, we will still need to reflect further whether enough will be done to guarantee a long-term future for biomonitoring. And unfortunately, I think that still remains uncertain. Finally, to say it very simple, I believe there is a clear future for human biomonitoring in the EU. Let's start to use this strategically for clear cases so that it can help us generating a positive impact on human health and the environment. Thank you very much.